the December 9th, 2024 Lake Mills Parks Board meeting. Welcome guests. I see the guests are already doing the process. If you are going to speak, please add your name and address. And when you're called, we'll have you repeat the same. The meeting agenda is, we'll do the call to order, the roll call. Welcome to our new Parks Board member, Jacob Slaby. We'll introduce ourselves so you have a little bit of idea of who we are, our backgrounds, and our roles here on the Parks Board. We'll do a Parks Board minutes review and approval, and then the Parks and Forestry Director's report from Eric. Number 7 is other public comments, including emails, which I do have a couple of those. Discussion and decision regarding the acceptance of the athletic field use policy, which had been included as an attachment in the agenda. And then prepare the Parks Board's 17th December City Council update or recommendation regarding the fulfilling the City Council resolution regarding the mill pond use and recreational opportunities. So that is number 9. Number 10 is recommendation for future agendas. And I mentioned already, we would like to add nominations for the vice chair of the committee and then adjournment. So thank you very much. And so let's begin the meeting. Roll call. Anita, would you start, please?
Anita Martin here.
Mike Niesman here.
Tim Sprecher.
Mary Schmager.
Jacob Slaby.
All right, thank you. So welcome, Jacob, and for your service. I know that we all are busy, and for you to step up and help us out with that is very much appreciated. So if you would, could you give us a bit of your introduction with your name, your role, and your background, if you would?
Absolutely. My name is Jacob Slaby. I grew up in a small town in west central Wisconsin, moved to Madison in 2020 for school, lived there for about 20 years. My wife and I moved to Lake Mills in 2020. We have 2 boys, 9 and 2. After college, I got into real estate house flipping, real estate sales. I bartend part-time at Tyranina Brewing Company. I constantly talk to people in the community. I'm a pretty outdoorsy person. My wife and I camp and hike, and we try to get the kids outside as much as possible. So when I heard about the opening on the Parks Board, it kind of seemed like a really good fit. So I just kind of wanted to throw my hat in the ring.
Thank you. Thank you. Mary, please.
Hi, Mary Schmager, and I've been in Lake Mills for 9 years. I am City Council member representative on the Parks Board, and I retired from American Family Insurance quite a few years ago, and before that had a lot of different roles, like teaching college and different industry kinds of positions on the scientific side of things.
Thank you, Mary.
And thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. Tim Sprecher, I am the chair of the Parks Board. Background is I've been in the city of Lake Mills since 1996, and I've been on the Parks Board, I believe, for over 2 decades. So that's a bit of my background.
Mike Niesman, my wife is from Lake Mills, so when we were in the Foreign Service, we retired, we ended up here. And happy to be on the Parks Board. I think I've been on about.
And you are the secretary.
And I am the secretary.
Anita Martin, we've lived in Lake Mills since 2001, having come from a couple years in Madison. My background is healthcare as well as writing and editing, and I did serve for 2 years prior to, 2 terms, 4 years on the county board. So I was appointed for the Parks Board with an opening earlier this year. So I'm relatively new.
All right, thank you. And again, welcome to our visitors and speakers. Parks Board's number 5, minutes, review and approval of the meeting minutes of November 11th, 2024, which are presented by Michael. Are there any corrections to the Parks Board's minutes as submitted? Hearing none, I would ask that if there's a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I move to approve the minutes as printed.
And do we have?
Second.
All right, Mary seconds this. Do we have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Actually, Jacob, you can't vote because you weren't here for that.
Okay.
So,
Ooh, Tim, good catch.
what's that? Just want to make sure we're all playing by the rules here. All right, so thank you, Michael, for those minutes. Let's move to the Park and Forestry Director's report submitted by Eric. Eric, please.
I'll start off with a few highlights, and then I'll open it up for questions to all of you. The Sandy Beach Restaurant referendum did not pass at the city council level. There will be a work session planned for December 19th to where city council representatives will be discussing our plans moving forward for Sandy Beach developments. We have been preparing all of our ice rink materials and doing our final fall shutdowns and our winter startup, so preparing equipment. Just as a note, ice rinks cannot be made unless temperatures are below freezing, so please keep in mind that we cannot make ice if it's not freezing out. But we are ready to go as soon as the ice rinks are able to be done. We have had all the lights at the Sandy Beach and Commons Park replaced as well, so hopefully we have some nice lights when we do have the ice rinks up and running. For 2025 projects, I already have been moving forward with some of those. The Memorial Park replacements, I did give the Girl Scout troop, who was working on some initiatives for Bartles Beach, their recommendation to provide the color input and selection for the Memorial Park playground, but we will be moving forward with that in early '25, as well as the pickleball court fencing has been installed at Rotary for the startup season for next year. And then the last for some of the upcoming projects in '25 is we do have all piers on hold. We do have all piers on hold to be replaced in 2025. So we have written purchase orders for them, just waiting for them to actually be received, and then we'll have them for the start of next season. That does include both boat launch piers, the swim pier at Sandy, and all of the pier and piers at Fremont, Hubs, and College Street will all be replaced. Other than that, main focus for my department is forestry work during the dormant season here. This is our switch between our normal parks maintenance and then our forestry maintenance in the dormant season. So we'll be heavily focusing on pruning during these winter months. Any questions?
I have a couple. Eric. First, are you going to publicize the information on the water bag so that people understand why they shouldn't run their lawnmower over it or whatever?
We could definitely provide an update. What I do anticipate doing is when we have them, I want to make sure that people know they are city property, maintained and managed by city representatives, just so they know the general operations of how to use water bags, that we do plan to have them on a watering cycle. So I assume that when those trees are planted, we'll include that as a attachment or letter when we notify residents that trees are being planted.
And your personnel will operate the water
Correct.
bags? Okay. The other thing I'd question, and I should know this already, all the piers at the street ends and that, your folks come and take them out then in the
Correct.
winter and all that? Huh, okay. And then, under the local Girl Scout troop, you talked about educational signage. Where is that going to be?
Potentially Bartles Beach. This has been a collaborative project with the troop. They contacted me looking to see what they could do to get involved into the park system. One of their recommendations that the girls offered was some educational signage on where trash bins are located and just enforcing the thought of using trash containers at Bartles Beach specifically. So they're putting together some of their drafted ideas for signage there. It's more of a outreach type signage for people to be more aware to use the garbage bins. I do anticipate that to be an actual agenda item for Parks Board. We don't necessarily need that, but it would be really cool to see the girls go through the start of the process, drafting, and then final acceptance through Parks Board would be really neat for them. So I think it would be cool to have the acceptance of those signs on a Parks Board agenda in the future.
Maybe have them come to.
Yep, that's kind of what I was thinking.
And this will tie into a public comment coming out later as to the holiday decorations have been installed
Correct.
and will remain up until after January 1st. Is after January 1st, are we talking like the 6th, or are we talking just sometime after
It depends on weather conditions and scheduling too. I'd like to keep them up decently after January 1st. Now, the actual ones from Lang Lighting, which would be the building perimeter ones, so like the band shelter, the restroom, and the Lions shelter, those will remain up after Knickerbocker. The decorations that I'm referring to, like the garland and wreaths, will stay up probably throughout the first or second week in January.
I think it's helps with the festive and it helps with the downtown, so to keep them up there as long as they look nice, I think is wise. So thank you. Any other questions, comments about the Facilities and Grounds Director's report? All right, thank you, Eric. Then let's move to the number 7 as far as the other public comments, including emails. Does anyone want to start with that? I know I've mentioned I do have a couple, so. Anita, any?
Well, I think all of us received the email regarding the foam with PFAS in the lake and in the lake foam. I mean, the lake, in the lake foam, there's PFAS in it, and in the actual lake water, and I think everybody received that from the Rock Lake Improvement Association, the article that highlighted the research which was done and published earlier this year. So there was cautionary about people not walking in the foam, not touching the foam, not letting their dogs go in it because they could lick their paws and stuff. You know, the level of PFAS in the foam, which you all know is really high. So, thank you.
Mike?
Just that one person complimented your educational information regarding the ice rink preparation. I think that was a good thing to do so people understand just how much work that is.
Right, mine, one was the, in the future, is there a way that we can prioritize getting the, specifically Santa, Big Santa, up in the Commons? Because I know there's a couple people commented that that was refurbished at expense, and they felt that it was put up in a bit late fashion for the holiday festivities and such. So that was one. The other one was the someone was very complimentary to the garland and such that it is in the park and also in front of the library. They were very, very pleased with the work. But I just want to make note, if we, in the future, if we can make a plan to make sure we can prioritize getting the Santa and whatever else up before the holidays.
If I could clarify, putting up Santa's not my department, but we are working collaboratively with the other department to do it during Thanksgiving for next year.
All right, I watched a movie last night, and they were talking about we're not Army, Navy, whatever, we're all one thing. So I like the fact of the collaboration and to get it done for the citizens and just for the merchants downtown. So thank you. All right, any other?
So I received the same PFAS and also timing of Santa and decorations and making sure the street lights and whatnot. I know that's not all in your department, Eric. And the holiday music all being, it was before Good Friday, I think, was the interest by some of the downtown business owners. And then I also received correspondence on an idea for consideration that I believe, we talked a lot about in our item 9, items regarding how we can enhance opportunities on the mill pond, but I received a memo about considering ice rink development on the mill pond. So we can add that possibly to number 9 for consideration.
I have a clarifying question, Mary Annette. Was that you and your family out there playing ice hockey on the mill pond yesterday or the day before?
Absolutely not. I am not a skater.
I think I've lived here a long time. It's the first time I've seen people skating out there, and I thought, well, that's something we could maybe add to the
Thank you.
the
No,
use.
that was not me. I maybe aspire to be a skater, but no.
Okay.
Yes, it is, yes.
Please don't laugh at that. Order in the room. All right. Anything else regarding the emails or public comment? If not, let's move to item number 8.
If I may, Tim,
What about
public comment.
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please, if you have public comment, please, if you have not already, put your address and name and address, and then please say same when you come up to the podium.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My first time here for this meeting, and I'm happy to be here. My name is Tim Arand. I live at W7898 County Road B, which is directly across from Tyrannina Park at the west end of Tyrannina Park. And Beth and I both live there, and we have the pleasure of both taking advantage of that park ourselves, but also sitting and looking out of our windows. Where we live is the Gina Thomas home. Some of you may remember it as that, and all windows in front. And so we can see the parks being used on an ongoing, regular basis. And what we oftentimes see in the summer is the west end of that park. It is full, and it is full of people taking advantage of the park and the lake, and they're really having a great time with it, and we enjoy it as well. Our concern then stems from the proposed apartment complex to go up in the empty lot across from Tyrannina Park, and the amount of traffic that will bring to that location, and the number of people who would then be using the parks as well. Our concerns are for the safety of the people going to and from. We see a large number of people walking to and from the parks. We see kids riding to and from school, from the west side of the lake to the school, to jobs and whatnot on County Road B. And we are very concerned with the added congestion that will add and what that will do to the number of people on the park. There's also a concern regarding parking with this facility, and the concern is that there will not be adequate parking for the apartment complex, and people who will be living there will end up parking right across the road in the park because there is no on-road parking for any overflow whatsoever. So with regard to this committee and the parks itself, primary concern is the added congestion it will cause, and with that, the safety of the people who are using the park, and just in general, the availability of that park then to our existing citizens and others who come up to use it. So I hope you take that into consideration as a parks consideration as well. Just as an added note, there is great concern within the community regarding this facility. Petition right now has over 539 people have signed the petition voicing their concerns with the apartment complex. And at the last meeting, it was well over 100 people in here, and over 24 people voiced their concerns regarding the apartment complex. So we are among them. We are a part of an organization called the Concerned Citizens of Lake Mills, and that is an organization that we hope that by speaking a larger number of people with one voice, we make our concerns known with the City Council and Parks and Recreation and other people within our administration as well.
All right. Thank you,
So,
Tim.
Beth, would you like to add to?
Good evening. I'm Beth Naughton. I reside at W7898 County Road B. I'd like to compliment the committee on, I agree, the decorations in the Commons are just stunning, and so proud that Lake Mills is, such a beautiful town. But to the other concern, we just want to register our concerns regarding the proposed apartment complex on County Road B and the potential environmental impact to Tyrannina Park and Rock Lake. The traffic study that was done, we feel, was very insufficient. We've counted many times over 400 cars an hour, and a lot of kids ride their bikes to fish at the lake, and we just have a lot of concerns around safety and the lack of parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
You know, I didn't come downtown just to talk. I think I'll have a beer afterwards, too.
That's allowed.
Anyway, welcome. Hi. Hope Osdike, W8357 Cedar Lane, town of Lake Mills. I always have an opinion on what you guys are doing, so. Tonight, I just wanted to say three things. Eric and I have been working really hard, along with Raina in our Lake Mills Main Street program, looking at some grant opportunities. It is not on your agenda tonight. I did not bring any drawings. I do not want to get the cat out of the bag quite yet, but we are working on a pretty exciting project, and we applied for a grant, and we will apply for another one. And what we have sort of learned through this process is that the WEDC offers grants to organizations like legendary Lake Mills, and to the city of Lake Mills biennially. And so this is a 2-year grant cycle. And so we're kind of under the gun to get something going this December. So we worked on this project basically without any approval from you guys, but we have some pretty cool ideas putting forward.
May I just pause you?
Yeah.
WBDC?
WEDC, Wisconsin Economic Development Commission.
Thank you.
Which is our foster parent, in our Main Street program.
Yeah, thank you.
They're making a lot of money available to small communities like ours in the name of Main Street or a group like ours or in the name of the city. And so this particular grant was a challenge in the fact that it needed to be done on city property. And so what we're kind of looking at is Ford Court, and I will respectfully ask that we bring this to your agenda as we go forward. The grant cycle, the grant was due today. There's another grant cycle coming up, I think that's due in the middle of December. We won't know about the results of these until probably April, but they wanted these projects to be shovel-ready and able to go ahead. So what we kind of determined from this, and I think we're on the same page here, is that we as a group need to put forward some visionary ideas in the future and have some plans already sort of engaged and ready, shovel ready, as we say, to be able to go forward to apply for some of these grants. Just wanted to kind of make you guys aware of that. If we were to get this grant, then you guys would be in the position to look at it. Even though Ford Court is not really a public park, it is a public space, and what we're looking for is to enhance that. The name of this grant is, what is it, Eric?
Vibrant Spaces.
Vibrant Spaces. So that's the kind of thing that the state is looking for to partner with us on. And we kind of worked out some of the details as far as partnering financially on this kind of a deal and working with some in-kind stuff. This is a 1-to-1 grant match. This particular grant is between $25,000 and $50,000, but it requires a 1-to-1 match. So that would be, on us to do some fundraising, on you to do some in-kind, although we can't really count the in-kind dollars. We have to do that in a matching sense. Just wanted to kind of let you guys know and not have you be out of the loop as we go forward. The other thing I wanted to say is, these decorations downtown Lake Mills don't just come from the Parks Committee. This is a mutual group. Some of the money's been raised by the Big Santa Fund. Some of the money has been put forward by Lake Mills, legendary Lake Mills. Lots of volunteerism, lots of checks, money changing hands. A lot of the work that gets done in the city of Lake Mills gets done by volunteers. And it's not a bad thing, but I don't think you should forget it either. And we're pretty proud of our parks, Our park looks,
I have a question.
Wow.
I have a question, Hope.
Yeah.
Do you have documentation of people hours, volunteer hours that maybe could be shared at a future Parks Board?
Our Main Street program, part of one of the requirements that we have to document all of the time that is spent in kind or by volunteers. And so that comes to you probably, maybe not to the Parks Committee, but certainly in the report that comes to the council on the activities of the legendary Lake Mills, because we depend on you guys for support too,
So, Thank you, but I think it's nice to get out and have it published, the amount of time that volunteers do give to the community, so.
Thank you.
And money and such. Anita, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? I was having a little trouble hearing. Which park were you talking about, Hope?
We are talking about Ford Court. A whole lot of people don't know where Ford Court is. That's part of our mission. Ford Court is the stretch right here in front of the City Hall that goes between here and Lake Street. It has no signage. It will in the future.
Ford, like F-O-R-D?
F-O-R-D.
Okay.
And
thank
I
you.
think that maybe that name harkens back to that there was a Ford dealership on this corner at one time. I might be wrong. Boing. Anyway, going forward, Knickerbocker's coming up. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to do it because we do all of these events in our parks. And I know that Eric's always under pressure about this ice rink thing, but people need to understand that we cannot put an ice rink together. We're ready to do it, but we can't do it unless we have sustainable freezing temperatures. And as far as a ice rink on the mill pond, with the current that flows through there, that kind of scares me, and I think you were right, Mike, we're skating on thin ice there. Those days of really a hard winter, I think, are over, and we might need to adopt or adapt to that in our community. So when you take all that heat, Eric, you know you have some support from the rest of us. Okay, one other thing. Oh, I really think that to answer your question, we really need to put together a procedure list for our Christmas decorations because we have things in all kinds of places and all kinds of pieces that fit together done by all kinds of different entities. So I'll give you an example. The big Santa is stored somewhere off-site. It's probably part of the Public Works Department, but we as a legendary Lake Mills are running these things, and we need to have a procedure list. And I'm going to say it out loud. I really think that one of the things that would really help to solve the problem of how things get done is if we would start earlier and try to have this done before everybody goes deer hunting. Because after that, the weather gets cold and it just kind of goes down the tubes, and we have Small Business Friday, and okay, now I've carried on long enough. I think we live in a really neat town. Thank you for all the work you do, and our parks are great. Let's keep them that way. Oh, maybe one more thing. This coming year is the 25th anniversary of Korth Park, and there's going to be some celebration about that. So that's kind of one of the things that we're planning this year to kind of assist with and help with. Also, what was the other thing I was going to say? I can't remember.
It might come to you. So may I ask, though, that what we'll do is and we can maybe put that on the agenda item.
Yeah,
going
let's
forward
look
about
forward to that.
about the-
I'd
Sorry?
like to show you guys what we've kind of put together for Ford Court so
Yeah,
that it's
that
not a
just to get-
secret.
yes,
And
get that on there.
and we're not sure whether the grant will go forward or not.
right.
But at least we have something in the hopper that we're working at.
right.
So if you guys would put that on your next agenda, then we could kind of talk about that and
Yep,
how
yep.
we might go about looking for funding for it.
Yep.
Thanks
So
very much.
Yep, thank you, Hope.
I am a little passionate.
Thank you very much, Hope. I
Just
appreciate
just a
it.
smidge, which is wonderful.
Thank you, Hope.
Thank you very much, Hope. Mary, do you have a comment? Question?
No.
Oh, I thought you were leaning forward.
I'm just sitting straight.
5 years, that's
Yes. I think Hope and I and others were tree planters 25 years ago, and it's amazing how big those trees have become in 25 years. So thank you very much. So let's move to if there's no other comments, did anything come online? Do we know if can people send things in?
Dave, can you
from
confirm
Zoom?
if there's anybody online that has public comment?
Thank you, David. No online, so let's move to the discussion, decision, acceptance of the athletic field use policy, which has been provided to us, and it was also as part of the agenda if people are looking for it online. So, do you want to start that?
Yep.
Thank
If I
you,
could
Eric.
provide some background, the reasoning and intent behind this policy, and what our main goals were to solve within this policy is kind of what I'll go through here. The city did take over scheduling of the athletic fields last year, and we implemented a previously written policy. In the enforcement of that policy, we recognized some holes in the policy itself, and got quite a bit of concerns listed from difficulties that the policy created for field users. One of the main issues was not being able to get a field, or certain teams may be prioritized over others, and it was confusing people generally for people to book these fields. So our goal was to make it easily understandable, create kind of a prioritized tier list for them. We copied other municipal field use agreements, and I believe that we created something that is as fair as possible. It's easily enforceable, it's easily understandable, and easy for us to administer as much as possible. We've seen a substantial amount of increased field use with more league teams being created, and just generally more teams using the fields within Lake Mills, and other municipalities have seen the same increase as well. Jefferson, Fort Atkinson, and Watertown are seeing substantial amounts of increased field use, which is great, but it also causes difficulties on the scheduling end. The city did intentionally take over the rescheduling or remanagement of the city fields because there were issues for double booking of these fields, which is not acceptable practice. School district scheduled some fields and we scheduled some on our own as well, which creates difficulties for these teams. So taking it over on ourselves, like I said, hopefully we came up with a policy that is fair and easily understandable. Some of the things that I would like to highlight on it that I hope addressed some of the previous concerns. If you notice, Tier 1, if we're looking at the actual priority use policies, one of the most important portions of it, we do have a tiered list. The way that I interpret City of Lake Mills functions is specifically if us as a city government or entity needs to use the fields. Do we need to cancel all reservations for drastic maintenance renovations? Is there some form of high-use event that is unexpected, but I don't anticipate this being a regular occurrence for Tier 1. I just want to make sure if the need presents itself that we can take management of our own fields if it ever did occur. The next one, or the primary user group, is going to be Tier 2. These are area recreation or Lake Mills Area School District events. They have WIAA, which is Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Association requirements. They have to have these fields scheduled in advance for use for scheduling for other school districts to use these fields. So they are the school district using the city's fields. That's why both school districts are listed, and the recreation department, which is affiliated with the school district, is listed. They have a time frame from January 1 to the end of February to provide us with their preferred dates for practices and games. At that point, that window opens up to Tier 3 users, I apologize. Tier 3 users would be private league teams that are not sponsored by a school district or rec department. We have seen an increase in actual league teams because there have been less teams sponsored by the school district, that being grades like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And these are coaches or sometimes parents that have taken over the management of these teams in lieu of the school district. What we have determined is there to be a Tier 3 and a Tier 4. We did require that there be 50% residency requirement for Tier 3. The very common complaint or issue that I heard about the policy with some of these local teams were unsatisfied that they weren't able to receive a field, but some out-of-town or out-of-resident teams were able to instead, who booked in advance prior to them. What this does is create that Tier 3 opportunity, a 2-week period in March to have their selection of those fields, at which point it opens up to Tier 4, which is any auxiliary. Yes, Tim?
A clarifying question, Eric. And when we say 50% Lake Mills residents, are we speaking Lake Mills area, town?
I would interpret this to be school district residents is kind of how I'm interpreting. If these are teams who were previously school district teams, they're similar makeup of the team, so I'm not having a city or township residency requirement. I could clarify within this document, like I said, if we adopt this tonight, which ideally we do, we can adopt as amended. So if there's any changes you guys recommend throughout it, or if we discuss, we can make that change. I could say school district residents or school district attendees may be a solution.
Yeah, I just think Lake Mills resident can be.
Town and city.
Yes, but that was the intent. If these teams were no longer sponsored by the school district, that they would still have some priority selection. And then Tier 3 would be any auxiliary private leagues, or if there's Jefferson School District or Fort Atkinson School District. I do believe that this is enforceable and we are able to administer this policy. We read it through, or authored it throughout this entire season. So we didn't just write this after the season. We had a working draft of this document throughout the entire season of 2024, putting in the concerns or addressing the concerns or making edits as we went throughout the entire season. And then kind of did a recap after the season of what we can do to make it better. So that is some of the clarifying points that I want to make sure and address some of the issues in the past policy. Other than that, not much actual enforcement has changed. We've just made it known. We've clarified it within the policy itself regarding our field preparation requirements, which have not changed since our last policy. The City of Lake Mills employees do perform field prep. That would be the preparation of a field for a game. You can see that what the requirements are, but that is by request. We still have the ability to either cancel that field prep work due to field conditions, but they are upon request. Now, any of those users who requested field prep are only charged if we did actually complete that field prep, of which they'll be invoiced at the end of the season. So that procedure has not yet changed, but the largest changes would specifically be the tiering system and the time frame for these teams to select. And any changes within that, potential issues, we can solve at the administration level, of which we'll work out with each actual field requester. I know it's a lot, and it's a 2.5-page document, but please, by all means, give questions, but I do feel very confident in the document that was authored. I feel like we have adequate representation of all the user groups of our fields, or as much as possible. I do feel like it is at least informative of some people who had a lot of questions based on the prior policy.
Mary, you had a question or
I
comment?
had a question while you were on the tiers, because I was curious, in Tier 3, you've just noted in parentheses Lake Mills Club Baseball, and I'm expecting that is an example, but it's the only one
Correct.
noted, so I was curious why it was there, because it made me, I was confused.
It is an example because they're probably the primary user group within Tier 3, or the largest user group within Tier 3. I wouldn't be able to name any specific ones, but that is the one that I can recall by name. But they have several teams within club baseball.
I would just say as an example, Lake Mills, because I
Instead of-
was
yes.
confused to say private team leagues with primarily Lake Mills resident participants, and because it was in parentheses, it was like, they are Tier 3. Only
Yep.
Lake Mills Club Baseball is Tier 3.
And the goal
'Cause
here
I'm not
is
familiar with
Yep.
the other ones, but if it's intended that there could be other private leagues with 50% greater Lake Mills residents, and that's just an example, I would just put the word example in front of it.
That's a great recommendation,
Okay.
actually. Yep,
Because
that
I was-
absolutely clears it up. I can see the confusion too. When we did author this, I mean, we've looked at it for months, so I'm glad that you have some insight to it. So I would actually, as we go through, like I said, I will be making changes on this document as we discuss it, and any recommended changes I'll add.
And to Mary's point, are there softball teams or all these baseball?
This includes softball users.
Does, okay.
Yep, that's why it's generalized as the athletic field policy rather than just baseball.
Yep.
Speaking to that, if you did notice, there is a section specifically on pickleball. The reason we had a lot of questions come up regarding the increased usage of pickleball, they are non-reservable unless there is some form of large scheduled event that the city would have oversight over, but they're intentionally not reservable, so they're easy to access, easy for newcomers to come and play pickleball. But we did include language of a generalized court usage policy. This is copied from Cottage Grove and other municipalities that have similar pickleball facilities. So as we're adopting the athletic field policy, I figured it appropriate to include pickleball.
Eric, I had a couple of questions and observations. First, I think, is that too early, booking on January 1st? You must know this already. That's not too early for these people to know.
That was one of the discussions that we had, whether this is too early or not. Now, we do have to have some form of a deadline. We
Sure.
do have people already using fields mid-March, weather dependent. So as we have seen increased warmer temperatures that time of year, we have to have some form of cutoff. And if you noticed, after April 1st, it's first come, first served. We will still honor field reservations if there's room available. Absolutely, we'll facilitate them throughout the entire year or entire season. But this is specifically an administrative side for us to actually enforce and enact this policy. We have to have some form
No,
of deadline
I get it. I
cutoff.
just didn't know if that seemed pretty early, but I'm not involved in this process at all, so.
I do think it is early, however, at the same time, I feel like it's kind of setting a routine. If we understand that we're already having field use in March, we need to make sure that it's documented athletic field usage so we prevent the double bookings of the field. In discussing this and reviewing it, I feel like April 1st is appropriate to have that final deadline cut off.
Okay. Next paragraph, I think, is excellent that you put in that it's the onus on solving inter-organizational issues is on the organization and not you. Always best to not be the involved parent. Under field prep fees, just a point, if these fees change, you need to have some sort of internal reminder to go back and change it on here.
Yep.
Or unless you want to have a link to it, Monday through Friday, and then have a link to whatever the current fees are.
We are currently having or drafting a new website. There will be some portions of this policy that will change procedurally for reserving them, but the intent and the reasoning, or not reasoning, but the actual processes behind the policy won't change, but we'll have new links associated with it. I would kind of determine that to be administrative type posting of the policy. So those field preparation fees, any fees collected by the Parks Department goes through Parks Board and then through City Council. It would be assumed that if we ever did reassess those fees, that this policy would be updated along with those.
I just, in my previous life, when we would draft policies, everybody forgot to go back and change them when subsequent issues were raised.
Good point.
Next one is, I'm just for my own interest, who does the scheduling process and procedures? You have someone in your department too?
Correct. That is Rachel Italiano. She is our administrative assistant. When she took this over, it was a phenomenal effort on her part, and she has been a huge key factor in developing this policy and a fantastic aid. She helped me balance a lot of things around how we're going to enforce this and how we're going to work, and her input was appreciated so we can make sure it's enforceable and make sure it's well. Now, I do want to clarify, this is from my reasonings and my drafting of the requirements within this policy. She was the author as well, but phenomenal effort on her part.
Okay. And the last one, a suggestion, the last page, under online booking form notes, final bullet, you have down such as practice dates and times, second line, please contact city staff for complete list. Maybe please provide city staff a complete list.
May you reference a page number and line, please?
On the final page, third page, online booking form notes, third bullet point, second line in the middle, dot, such as practice dates and times, and you have please contact city staff for complete list. I think please provide or something might be a bit more, might flow better.
Good. Noted. Thank you.
Otherwise, looks good to me. Outside of the Oxford commas, which I personally prefer, but that's...
I have just a couple quick questions. Is this intended to be for a certain term and then reviewed? Like, is this a year or two,
It is not intentionally designed that way. However, if there are issues with this policy as we enact it throughout this coming season, I do expect this to be a fluid document of which we can adjust if there are issues. So my goal here again is to alleviate those issues, alleviate those concerns, make it work for the field users, but also make it work for administrative staff. So if we notice issues enforcing this, we'll treat it just like we did the prior policy. We'll adjust the policy if needed.
Okay. And then is this the same policy, like if someone from the outside wants to use the area, I don't know what you call it, but the area underneath the Rotary concession stand, the patio?
This is not, no.
This is not, so
This is
that's,
specifically the athletic fields.
okay. So is there a separate policy
Yes.
for that right now? Okay.
Yep, there are shelter reservation fees and fee schedules, treated very similarly. Anyone, general public, is able to reserve and pay for a shelter within the park system.
Okay. I know that it was kind of an anomaly, but last year there was an issue, you knew about it, an issue with a family that had reserved, and then, there were games going on, and it was, they were upset because they thought they had exclusive use of that area and everything, so, but that's probably been addressed, so, thank you.
Did you want to go? Oh, okay. I just had a few questions also. One was in the field prep section that Mike was asking some questions in that area, specifically regarding what happens if the field is not usable?
City staff makes the determination.
There wasn't, it reads as if they will make a determination if it's not preppable, but I wasn't clear on when, and if you actually say, I'm sorry, you're not able to use it. It's too wet, and it'd cause so much damage, you wouldn't want to have teams out there, as an example. And I think that was maybe it wasn't strong enough.
That was the intent behind that paragraph.
Okay.
Do you have recommended language which may clear that up a little bit? Looking for any input. Otherwise, what we could do too is we could re-review that section. We wouldn't change the intent behind it, but
Well, but perhaps in the, under, where it says field prep availability, that paragraph, so the third little paragraph there.
Correct,
City
yep.
staff will notify users as soon as possible if prep work cannot be completed and the field is not usable, or just something as direct.
to clarify.
Because not preppable might mean, yeah, you might not get out there, but it's still usable. And maybe it can be not preppable and usable. I don't know, maybe those two things can be separate. I'm not an expert in this space, but.
I agree with your recommendation. If prep work cannot be completed, I may add in, or I will add in the clarification, or if the field is unusable.
Yeah.
That still gives us as city staff the
Judgment.
authority and judgment to be able to do that. There may very well be circumstances where the field is usable, perhaps an emergency occurred to where city staff had to be reallocated. That could also be an example to where weather is not a condition. But I do agree with saying if field is unusable, we can add that.
Then it gives you an opportunity to protect the
Yep.
field.
There
if
are
there's-
circumstances where it is so saturated that even stepping on the field creates maintenance issues when it dries out.
Yeah.
You have very, very deep footprints that need to be drug and groomed out of the field, which is difficult to do when it's dry. So that is a good input, and I will add it to that section.
Okay. And then I only had a few questions on the pickleball
Yes.
section. Just ask a question regarding how reservations for special events will be communicated.
That's through a special events permit through the city. So just treated like anything like Town and Country Days or triathlons or parades or anything else. They go through a special event permit process. I would interpret that to be like if someone had, for example, a large fundraising event that they would like to book Rotary Park for some reason.
But then how will it be communicated to the citizens? Like, so how will I know if I get up in the morning and I want to go play pickleball that it's been reserved by,
Yep, so we started a process already to where there is a line of communication between city staff and general pickleball users through the actual scheduling app that's primarily used by them. But we are hopefully going to be enacting a liaison of someone who could be the designated pickleball player, or I suppose advocate for the actual city staff. It is hard it is difficult to notify residents or general parks users of special events. For example, the triathlon, we have a lot of boat traffic coming down Sandy Beach Road, and we have the triathlon down there, so it is difficult. I can't guarantee that there's a perfect solution for it, but I think notifying as many of the pickleball users through that system would be appropriate for it.
okay, because also on the rules for the courts, I'm just curious, are they going to be posted? I know in
Yes,
Cottage Grove
they will be.
posted them. And then you had mentioned, I hadn't thought about that app. Many pickleball court communities actually post the app as kind of a sponsored city approach. Are we planning to do that with the app that the citizens here have kind of started to use on their own?
We are not, I suppose that kind of removes, my goal here is, like I said, to not make the courts bookable. I want them to be open and usable. I think by the city advertising or managing an app or systems or something like that creates additional work for scheduling the pickleball courts themselves, similar to the athletic fields here for baseball and softball. I don't think we have the capacity to do that yet. Signs itself, though, for those play rules will be posted at the pickleball courts prior to spring of '25. Not a great answer for the actual scheduling, but I believe we're already at capacity with our baseball and softball field management. I wouldn't want to take over pickleball court
Yeah,
management.
and I wasn't suggesting that the city take it over. That app itself, I think it has scheduling capabilities, so you can say, I'm going to go out and sign my name up, and I'm going to schedule court 1 from 8 until 10. So then anybody else in that group, only in that group who knows about the app, can then see that the court number 1 is reserved, but that is not what you're saying here. So this is a little bit of, I think, what citizens would like to do or have been doing is not what we're proposing, where it's completely open, you play to 11 and you spin in and spin out. And so I just think it's a bit of is it educating? Has the pickleball community, are they supportive of this section, given it's a newer, we have new
This was
courts. We have new courts, so that section you're asking about, is it a 1 year? I think the pickleball might be something of interest to really, that might go a different direction depending on how the users feel about what they experience. I mean, and that's,
I agree, and are we going to have park staff enforce the pickleball use on the field itself? We do not have the capacity for this. This is an education or recommendation on how to use the courts to facilitate a little bit better,
fair
so we
and-
don't have any conflicts
Yeah.
between users. Perhaps it is a thing to where we could review post 2025 athletic field use policy. We could have an update or a review at the end of the season to see what issues or circumstances came up. But this is our first attempt at doing this. I believe the last field policy was authored somewhere around 2007. I believe it's kind of like an audit process. Let's see where we are in this policy. Is it still applicable? Are there issues? If we need to rewrite it, we'll rewrite it. That's where we're at with this policy.
yeah, I just would put it, I like your idea of after the 2025, like summer or the season in the fall, to just to,
Give a
say
wrap up.
pickleball users, bring it back up and see what kind of input or feedback
Yep.
and see if this worked well.
Good.
Yeah, I like
Thank
that.
you.
Otherwise, I think this, those are my only comments and questions. I think it, and I did one other one, sorry, one other one. I don't see any note about liability. I don't know if
We
that-
still have recreational immunity
Right,
within
but
the actual court
I didn't know
usage.
if that was, I didn't see anything in the policy. A lot of the policies do have a statement from, in other cities regarding we're not liable for anything. And I don't know that it's needed because,
I wouldn't
we
say
might
that
have
it's
it
needed because
by
by
design,
default,
isn't it?
we have recreational immunity in the park system.
okay.
All right, thank you. Rick. Just a couple of comments. One, just for clarity I wonder if for the City of Lake Mills field policy, if you do want to put a date, like for 2025 or 2025, 26 or something like that, to be reviewed, something like that, so it's a process. But I do think you want to make a note that this is for 2025, 2026, or whatever it would be, but I do want to have a delineation.
When a policy is enacted, it's enacted until amended or brought up again. We do have the actual date listed on the bottom of the pages as well. I wanted to make sure that we know when this was authored.
Yes.
Are you specifically saying in the title, or do you think having the date somewhere on this document so we can date it, so when we look back, let's say 10 years from now, we can say, yes, this was authored in 2024?
Well, what I'm asking is that how long are we looking at this being valid?
Until revised.
That's pretty broad. So,
It is, yeah.
To me, I would rather, if it's a 4-year deal or something, but I do think it's something that we should put into a calendar that this is for now, unless amended or something like that, this is what we're going to do. But
I like the language that you suggested as amended.
Yeah,
That would be appropriate. My goal here is if we continue changing policies constantly, and I don't want to say that's a bad thing either, because we should be reviewing our policies and making sure they're applicable. But I do want to make sure that this is policy and has some weight to it. This is what we are enforcing, our field use says.
right. And I agree with that. So I think if it's a 5-year or 10-year fine, because like you said, I don't want it every year somebody changes the policy, because then continuity is very important too. People want to know, to Anita's, when does it start, when does it end, and I don't want to, so the more we can just be clear on that, I think that would be good. The other question I have, and this is my ignorance, is that, and this goes back to Anita's question about booking, on the viewable calendars that I use, so I'm trying to find a reservation or something like that, is that going to tell who else is on that date and what time frame?
Correct. Yes.
So it's something like that, if they wanted to, you could say, you might want to look at the calendar to make sure there's not a softball game going on the day you want to have your family picnic.
Yep, that is correct. And this also goes to other field users as well. Someone could say they have the field booked from 5:30 to 7:30, and someone could very well then book it from 7:30 to 9.
Right.
But yeah, that is listed on the calendar.
Okay, so I think that's good, and I think that would help the people, if they wanted to, say if they wanted to have the family reunion and the park, Can they do that all on the calendar, or are those two separate things?
Currently, right now, they are two separate calendars. With the introduction of the new website, they're all going to be consolidated into, it's going to be much more user-friendly to understand what's going on in the parks with the new calendar system. So we'll say right now it's clunky, but that'll be much easier viewable. What we could do as well is cross-reference shelter reservations with field use reservations as well.
And that, you talking about winter sports, when we get Sandy Beach more robust, and there might be a hockey rink down there or a skating rink, and a family might want to have a winter festival or picnic, it'd be nice if they could reserve, a place and plus the hockey, or not the hockey, but the ice down there. So just stuff like that where people can kind of plan and not be conflicting with others, or move it because somebody else is there. So just things like that to get an idea of if we can make that calendar pretty robust.
Okay.
With a key or whatever it would take.
I will be, we did meet with the actual website developer as well. I'm very confident that they'll be able to have a very ironclad system for calendars, and also very user-friendly. I want it to be easily viewable.
Okay, because I have some examples if they want, ones that I've used seem to work quite well. Any other questions on the city facilities, fields policy? So what is your expectation from us now, Eric?
Expectation would be so like I said, I do want to have the Parks Board approve this for tonight so that we can have it in place prior to January 1, so fields can start booking. I would say if you do want to vote to approve it, you can say that you would approve, you would approve as amended, and I will make the recommended changes on this.
Is someone prepared?
Motion to approve the City of Lake Mills Facilities Department athletic policy as amended.
Oh, Mike,
Sorry.
Mike.
Mike. I make a motion to approve the City of Lake Mills Grounds Facilities Department athletic fields policy as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, vote.
Aye.
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 All right, so
Thank you very much.
recommendation is passed. Thank you very much, Eric, and others for your comments. So that, move on to the discussion of preparing the Parks Board's 17th December City Council update regarding the fulfilling their council request, the resolution. And I am going to put this out to the committee or the board members as to how we want to proceed as to, I can kind of give you what I've sort of envisioned, and I don't know if Lisa can, if she's observing or if she can text in or how her process is, or Mary, you could be the spokesperson for the city council, maybe as to what your preference is as to what our detail for our recommendation. Because right now, I thought we'd kind of get like a chronological of what sort of like the major expenses were, or major requested, and what we considered and what we explored and what we decided, specifically that there was a issue of the dredging, and then of the weed cutting and the costs and such. So those were considered on a number of ways: public input from the DNR, the county water specialists, and others. And it was determined by us both by cost and by just environmental and logistics. It would be very prudent for us to not put the money into dredging or cutting weeds, both environmentally, but also for the city and for the finances that we were supposed to. But those were the big recommendations. And I think that's what so it was like asked and answered. When it comes to the next part of this, which is the fishing piers and the boardwalk and the trailer parking and such, those are going to be more, here's like cost and ease. I'm just trying to figure out which way would be the ones that we can do this, but it's going to cost this. This might not be as big a priority, but it's a low-ticket item. And just sort of, it's good, what we're presenting to the city council for them to approve. My assumption is they'll go with our thought of not dredging and not doing the weeding. Of course, city council can do what they decide. But as far as our preparation and presentation, I just kind of want to get your thoughts. And we'll start with you, Anita, if prepared, and we'll just sort of decide how we want to proceed with our presentation.
One thing that might be real helpful, since we're saying that we're not recommending dredging or weed removal per se, but then to also reiterate that private landowners can do weed removal with a special permit. I think that we want to make that available as part of the recommendation, since a few people did that, and that helped with their use of the mill pond, so.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing we want to make sure it's a presentation. We're not trying to take anything away from a property owner doing what they can do, working with the DNR or the county. We just want to make sure that we're not saying that the city of Lake Mills is going to be part of this process or the costs of such.
Yes.
So,
Excuse me, Tim, didn't you provide a update to the council sometime in the past where you specifically said, because of money in this and this, we are not recommending dredging and weed removal?
I did, per your ask, I did provide an update several meetings ago to the city council regarding a change in the recommendation based on the new data that had come forward from the DNR. And so they are aware that dredging and weed harvesting was taken off of a point of consideration, and that the committee was still continuing to look at other ways to bring additional citizens and recreation and joy to the mill pond, including things like the kayaks and the launch and things that we had talked about. So they're aware of a change, and that we were working on vetting.
So do we
some
need
of the
to
longer
specify
term.
that? Or can you just say, per a report of whatever, we do not recommend dredging weed removal? I don't know how
Well, that gets into
involved you want to get.
I like your chronological, I thought, because that's kind of the chronology, what is the right word? That is kind of the history, is that a lot of work was completed on considerations, a lot of work, really great work, and the new learnings, the DNR came forward with the depth studies and the protected species studies and some other things. I think that chronological kind of layout would be very helpful. I don't know, you need to go in a lot of detail, but I think showing kind of the progress would be very helpful for city council. And then Lisa, I see, is on. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, everyone.
hello. So yes, I do think that we can form it as a, here was the ask, or this was what we explored, and I can bring out the copy of the actual resolution, but it's quite, the point of it was going back to what are the recreational opportunities for the people of Lake Mills? And there was a thought that it wasn't being used because it wasn't deep enough, or it wasn't being used because it was too weedy. And our research and our presentations and our public input had varying inputs on that.
I'd say mostly they were in favor of doing it.
Doing what?
Say the public wanting dredging and/or weed removal. The public did.
It's some, until like the cost came up and what the impact was going to be on the flora and the fauna and the water quality. And especially I think we as a Parks Board were, when Colton came and did that depth finding, and we found that most of the mill pond was navigable, 2.5 feet to like 4.5 feet, 5 feet. The big issue was the weeds. And then when our DNR people said, well, if people are having issues not being able to access the corridor where the water was free of weeds, they could work with them, and they'd be happy to work with them with dredging and weed removal and such. So those are the sorts of things with us as a board and our, trying to be good stewards for the community and for the environment, I think that's where we came to the recommendations of those main ones, and the cost, and we're talking millions. I'm also, on a little of a side, I don't know if you saw that in the city of Milwaukee, they're talking about their mill pond, and I was reading the state or Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, same thing, they're talking some $16 million or $4 million, and plus, like us, if they do one, then you gotta also think about maintenance of the dam and whatever, because it isn't free, you can do this, but you still gotta have so millions of dollars to maintain it. So I think those are things we also decided. We talked about dredging, how long it's gonna last, the sediment. So the big thing was dredging was not feasible monetarily or even long-term. But anyway, so let's go back to, I think Anita's comment is quite good about the dredging, the weed removal, but then making sure that the fact that the DNR is there for people should be right at the top of the conversation. And then the other part of it is the cost-benefit analysis for the people when it comes to fishing piers or the boardwalk, and Eric's done a very good job of giving us money, what it's going to cost to do certain things. So, Mike.
Just more for Jacob's background, it was a very emotional issue, having access to the channel and out to the lake. And many people felt it was too shallow, but what Tim referred to was, it was a very low water level for the last couple of years, and now this year was more normal. And when the DNR or the city or the county did testing, there I think were 3 properties that in fact did not have what the DNR considered adequate nautical depth to get their boats out. And they in fact could and would very likely be successful in petitioning for the right to remove enough of those weeds to be able to get their boats out. So we're not saying people can't, but for a lot of money, and we're not even sure we could find a company to do it, and if we did, we're not sure the DNR would allow it. Going down that road was not going to happen.
I do think that we also talked about our last meeting, we do have I would say an immediate term or short term set of recommendations within the space on the kayaks, the storage and the rentals. I think if we do chronological but go right to, we do have a recommendation on these things moving forward, and then continued discussion with further information on some larger, more transformational types of projects if we decide we want to move forward, such as the boardwalk with educational signage or other things, whatever they may be. So I think we have a good a recommendation set for the city council.
I do, and if we need to go back and look at our minutes or the discussions from the last meeting, so thanks for bringing it up, Mary, because I think the biggest we want to know is this is what Eric had worked on, that some of the things, boardwalk, that's infrastructure, that's costs, that's maintenance, but as Eric pointed out, kayak rentals is pretty straightforward. If it doesn't work, we can say we're not doing that anymore without impact, without true cost or much cost to the city.
And what I can do too is, I like the fact that Mary stated there are things that we can do immediately or basically next season. And I think we already lined those out pretty well. So we can say in the next 1 to 2 years, we can say for 2025, we already do have kayak storage agreement ready to go. That would be for the 2025 season. We plan to implement that. The next would be kayak rental, similar to Sandy Beach. We do plan to move forward with that for 2025, both of which as tester programs. The last one being our kayak pier and fishing pier installation. That would not be for next year, but it would be created through our budgetary request next year for 2026. So you can say these are some things that we're doing currently that are easily enactable, and then here's our next year lookout for how you plan to increase recreation.
Yes, and we also talked about maybe getting sponsors for some of these activities. So if someone wants to sponsor a boardwalk or someone wants to sponsor the signage or something like that, we could also say that would be part of our process. See, is there someone, or put it out to the generous people of the area that may want to do that. But I think that's the kind of thing that we can put it out there. We don't recommend the city taxpayer paying it, but if we can find somebody who will come and pay for it and also agree to some sort of maintenance of it. But I think that's something that we want to make sure we
If
put
I
out
could,
there.
if I could make one more comment in agreeing with the maintenance aspect of it. We have a current resource, which is the trail that goes around the south end of the mill pond. We did discuss that, yes, we have this feature, we have this amenity. However, here is our plan to restore and maintain that moving forward. I think that would be a nice thing to touch on as well.
Yeah, we want to make sure we consider all the things that in the future, because 9-year-olds and 7-year-olds are going to be the ones that are going to be dealing with it years from now. I'll be long gone, so I don't want them cursing my efforts here.
And anything, Tim, would you be presenting this at the December 17th meeting?
I believe, yeah, I can certainly do that. I would hope that maybe we can have some assist with you. Mary, of course, will be there to maybe ask clarifying questions and stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing for us is, our intent is to make it succinct, but informative, so that people watching can get to the gist of, here's the ask, here's the research, here's the cost, here's our recommendation.
So my thought then is perhaps what I could do to assist with this as well prior to the 17th meeting is I could kind of have a bulletized list of speaking points following in a chronological order and assist you with the presentation if you would like.
Yeah.
Do you intend to keep it verbal or do a presentation?
Well, that goes to what the council would like, and I'm glad Lisa's on to see if there is any input like that. To me, I think it would be if we could have some sort of PowerPoint or something like that with some photos, because I think those are some things that were very, what's the reed grass that's encroaching on the canary reed grass? We can, have some pictures like that and letting people know this is going to be worked on.
That, and also perhaps we could have the county's water depth study shown up on there as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you have a list of requirements, I think doing a presentation would be fine. If we just want to keep it photos and cycle through them would be great. But if you would like some of that, I can by all means assist putting together a draft for it.
Yeah. And I put this to Mary as our conduit to the city council. It might be fine to do a 2-minute, 3-minute overview and say, these documents and these pictures are on the website. So we're not bogging down the meeting, but still getting an update and still talking about our recommendation with the dates and such. And so, Anita, anybody else have a comment?
Tim, would you recognize me?
Absolutely. Is this Lisa?
Yes. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for all your work on this. I guess I would just share a couple thoughts. The resolution that asks you to work on this project asks for, a 6-month progress report. So in December, at a minimum, we would be looking for a progress report. If you want to put something in writing, I think that would be helpful just for the citizens and for the long-term storage to have even a brief report. It could be in a PowerPoint. It could be, something that you do as a follow-up to the presentation. But I think something that's written is a good tangible document that then people will be able to refer to moving forward. So that would just be my thought. If it's not ready for December 17th, I think that's fine as well. And, Tim and Mary, between the two of you, you can certainly represent the board, but something that memorializes and summarizes your overall recommendation in a document, I think would be very helpful for the future.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
Is anybody against Lisa's recommendation or request? Okay, I think we're okay. Anything else as far as the plan? So what I'm hearing is we have a pretty good overview of what our intent is, the chronological order, starting with the actual resolution when that was created, and then what we've done with the ask, again, the research, the recommendation, and what our the plans would be as far as the documentation. Yes, Anita?
One thing that we might want to look at is Mike did a really nice job in the minutes with the short term and the longer term, the summary of kind of what we were talking about. One of the things we did talk about is maybe pursuing some nonprofit partners or, working with nonprofit groups to assist with some of the things that people were interested in, like the signage on the different, frogs and all that type of thing. So maybe that could just be enhanced a little bit or mentioned.
That's an excellent addition and catch, yes, because Mike did a very nice job of the options and costs and did the short-term, long-term, so yes, excellent, and thank you again, Mike, for doing that. Yes, it's always good to be able to use someone else's work, it's, absolutely. Applaud your efforts, so thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? So at this time, Eric, you and I offline can talk about when we can meet and get this together and.
Yeah, what I'm thinking right now, especially with holidays coming up too, but we do have the deadline. If you do plan to do it on the 17th, I can start like a parent document or a master document, kind of have a general layout, bulletized form that we can be able to have within the city council minutes too. And then I can send that draft to you and we can work collaboratively on it.
Right.
But I'll get the general template or general layout set.
Yeah, that would be good. And it just like what Mike has done with the minutes, that the more we can make it that's usable for the city and for the storage, and consistent with other processes, I think that serves all the people of the city and the staff. So,
I'm just wondering, you guys McRae did a lot of work in that too with the cost estimates, and do you have those somewhere? So those would be
Yes.
in the archives and good. Okay.
Yep, they're within the minutes itself, but what I can do is I could maybe, if we want to go that far, I could say if you want to reference these documents, reference Parks Board meeting July 12th, 2024 or something like that. I can say it's in there.
I agree with that. I don't think we need to tell the money and the math and all that.
all there.
But it's all there, and like you said, either time stamped or date stamped, we can find it. And if there is a real need, the city council can ask for more. So, yeah, so thank you very much. Any other thoughts, comments on that agenda item? If not, let's move to the 10, which is the recommendation for future agendas. I've got a couple that I made a note of. One was the vice chair, the grant, and the Ford Court discussion and such. Are there any other recommendations for future agendas?
Yes, most likely, I'm kind of thinking February, looking at the schedule. I did speak with Emily Klein, the troop leader for that Girl Scout group. I really would like to have that as a short agenda item on one of the meetings to accept their drafted signage for Bartles Beach. So what I'll do is I'll have a rendering of the drawings in front of Parks Board. You can look at them. They can talk about their plan and where they want it to go. But girls have put a lot of work into it, and I think it would be really cool to see them finish it at the Parks Board level.
The other part that someone brought up, I don't know if it needs to be an agenda item, but now I apologize, I can't, who's our reporter for the Lake Mills Leader and the one that put?
Abigail Williams.
Abigail. And that if Abigail maybe could come to the meeting, give us an idea of what, she thinks that the people would like to know from the Parks Board as far as plans and, future developments and such, because I've been on this board for quite a while and we've had lots of reports and consultants and such saying they're going to do this. I think somebody might want to have a report of where those things are. And I think we've also, talked about this with this dredging. I mean, this thing was 2018 and it's 2024, 25. And so, and the other part about that thing with Abigail, and this is no shade on you, Eric, but someone made a comment that when the report of this work is done, it comes like Eric's the one that's running the Parks Board.
He did it.
And so they were saying, well, shouldn't it say with input from the Parks Board or with the approval of the Parks Board? So in her reporting, I guess said, it might be, we want to make sure that we have some responsibility. It's not just all on Eric.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so,
Thank you.
yeah, so I do think I would ask Abigail to say, just make sure it's not all Eric and, Eric's fiefdom. He reports to us, he guides us, he helps us, but we're the ones that are making the requests, or we're the ones that are making the recommendations.
Thank you for
So-
that statement. I appreciate that.
What's that?
Thank you for that statement. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
so I just want to make sure that gets reported, and,
Correction too, I said Abigail Williams. Her name is Abigail Levins. I'm sorry. Apologize.
okay. So, yes, Dick.
This is my first day. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about number 9, about all the ideas to improve recreational opportunities. I just had a couple of questions, and I'm not entirely sure if this is the opportune time, but, worst happens, you say no.
Well, you can certainly bring it up. I just wonder if that's something if time-wise, and because we want to be pretty good on the agenda, so it
Okay.
doesn't confuse people, that if you have questions that are short, and we can maybe put them on the next agenda to be answered,
Okay.
or
They're
there's
very,
things-
very quick.
Okay, go ahead.
We were talking about the fishing piers. I walked the path south of Mill Pond today. Where was the plan for the fishing piers near the fire station?
Fishing piers would be attached to, so if I can clarify, the fishing pier would also be an extension of a kayak pier. It's one piece of infrastructure itself, so it's one floating pier that has a handicap accessible kayak ramp, as well as a fishing pad or platform with benches on it, which people can fish off of. That was planned to be where the boat launch is. One boat launch pier would come out in favor of a fishing pier with a kayak ramp on it.
Fire station.
Okay, and I was there today, and there's some just crumbled up concrete, an old sidewalk that kind of seems to just be sitting there. Is that going to stay? Or is that going to
I
be
actually don't know
replaced?
where
you're-
or what you're referring
If you were
to.
looking at the mill pond, and you can see both piers, it would be behind you and to the right. It's basically just a shattered block of concrete.
So the actual shoreline.
Correct.
Yep, that shoreline. That would be some form of a long-term plan to restore that entire shoreline. In that dredging feasibility study from 2018, there was all sorts of different improvements, like looking at long-term boat lift storage, all this kind of stuff. We understand that that infrastructure is old. At some point, will have to be replaced.
Okay. And then obviously you're expanding kayak rentals. Has there been an initiative to potentially add stand-up paddleboards?
That would be included. So this
Okay.
contractor has single kayaks, double kayaks, and paddle boards as well.
Okay. That is it.
Any other items to future agendas? Is it in the Parks Board, with Tim and Beth's comment about the impact of upper Tyranina and lower Tyranina, or is that?
This would probably be a question for Dan to clarify if it would be within the scope of the Parks Board. It is a property that is adjoining or next to a park, so perhaps it could be, but I wouldn't really be able to answer that for sure, not confidently for sure not. If you have input on it, I believe you'd be able to make your opinion known, but whether the Parks Board can act upon it, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, it's sort of like, to me, it's sort of like the water is the county and the DNR and the beach, and so we can have input, but we don't have any.
And that's what I'd have to clarify, or we'd have to clarify. I can't confidently answer that tonight, so perhaps it's a clarifying question for Dan.
Okay, and so maybe we could put that on the agenda, that you talk to Dan and this is a response, or we can ask Dan to come, or what, is that something? I don't think Dan wants to show up here, if we could just have a quick answer.
What I can do is I can keep you updated, Tim. I can keep you updated on what that response would be, and if you determine it to be worthy of an agenda item, we can go from there.
All right. So, thank you very much. And is Lisa still on? Is that going to be, do you know, is our presentation going to be on the December 17th?
If you prefer it to be on the December 17th, I would need to know by Thursday for sure of this week. If you do plan to have it on there, I just need to know confidently if you're planning on the 17th or not. So I suppose, to clarify, do you plan to have it on the 17th? And if so, I can get it on the agenda.
Then the answer is yes, and please do, because going back to Lisa comment, our task was to report every 6 months. So I just want to we honor that task, and as Lisa, even if it's a shortened or just a high level, we're still doing this, but I do want to be on the agenda.
Yep, that I can confirm then. I will get that on the agenda for the 17th.
And then the other question I had is, you're having a working meeting on the 19th, and that is for the city council, and public's not invited or any of that stuff?
Public is invited, public can attend work sessions, it is a public meeting, however, there is not a public comment section, and it is not filmed generally, but you can absolutely attend in the audience, but that will be on the 19th, and work sessions are generally very broad topics, specifically Sandy Beach renovations, what are we doing, and it's a specific topic on that, so it's not like a full city council agenda, there's one topic that the council will be working on.
And so that doesn't need to be in the agenda, that could be part of your director's report?
As far as like a status update? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can provide a status update on the work session.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I
I'd
just,
happy
I
to
think,
entertain any questions.
yeah. I
And I
think-
would
Sure.
encourage you, if you have thoughts, I know, I'm not sure exactly, I believe the scope is Sandy Beach as a.
Yes.
Sandy Beach.
As in
the
in
big
its
Sandy Beach.
entirety, it
Not
is
just
very
the
broad.
restaurant, but the restaurant, of course, is I would say the most recent, very important subset of Sandy Beach that I'm sure will be a point of discussion. But I encourage you all, and I encourage all of the citizens, if you have thoughts, please reach out and send your viewpoints or call city council members and share. I mean, the last, I think, formally documented plan was back from 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
correct.
And so ideas are welcome, and I don't know, we may end up with, I don't know what we'll decide, but I'm sure we'll be talking about our own ideas and, how do we gather others' thoughts and whatnot along the way as we reassess what we're doing with Sandy Beach as a whole. But it's our first meeting, so I'm not sure how far along we'll get, or how high or low, or if we'll focus on one part of the, I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I just encourage everyone to just share their voice.
And the more we've said this, the more the city shares with the citizens, I think that we're better served. And so thank you for that, Mary, and thank you, Lisa, and everybody else. And have the Lake Mills leader, I think, very much helps, because that's the only way we stay abreast of what's going on. All right, so if no other comments or ideas for the agenda, we'll do the standard things in the future. And we are adjourned at 6:57.